I'm really enamored of this system, Ironsworn, which is a tabletop RPG of Perilous Quests by Sean Tompkin. And I did a video that was a flip through of the book. So for this video, I'm just going to demonstrate some gameplay, and I thought I would actually start by just actually beginning to play the game for you and see how far I get. I'll be reviewing some rules as I go, and I want to certainly call your attention to the credits here. This is writing and design by Sean Tompkin, and it is available for free on his website, and this print version and also a version in hardcover is available through drivethrurpg.com. I love this system because it is designed for and works as co-op solo and also guided. What I'm going to be doing here is I'm going to be creating initially and running initially 2 characters. Part of me wants to simply do 1 character because I like the concept of just a lone person wandering through this world and maybe meeting some other people along the way, but I'm going to do 2 at least right now, because I want to demonstrate the interplay and I want to create 2 different characters and show some of the flexibility of the system and the moves that they have and how that might work. If you watch my channel, you will know that recently I posted a series of videos on my struggles to learn and then play Magic Realm, and in my final posting on that, I was talking about the fact that I wanted, when I played Magic Realm, to really be able to inhabit this character. I wanted to have the experience of being this character, but unfortunately with Magic Realm I just experienced more of this, the mechanics of it and the dryness of it. Well, that's in another video, and you can see those my further thoughts on that if you want in that series on Magic Realm, but you can tell where I'm going here. In Ironsworn, I am going to get to be this character. This is where I am starting from. Now, when you're playing this game, you don't need to have somebody in mind. Obviously, you can just be creating, but I knew from the beginning that I wanted to play this White Knight somehow. So my main character is going to be this guy, basically, in my mind, or what I wanted this guy to be. And traveling with him, I'll stick to Magic Realm, why not? And traveling with him, I'm going to make somebody who is akin to this pilgrim character. And the 2 of them are going to be traveling together, and these are the characters that I'm going to start with. I believe that in my mind I'm going to have them try to visit or find a 3rd character from Magic Realm, because why not? This Woods girl, she was somebody that I tried to play initially in that game, and it didn't really work out, but I like the concept of these 2 characters. The White Knight is my main character, traveling with the pilgrim to somehow find the Woods girl. I don't know anything more of the story beyond that. We're going to see how, and I will show you how as I get to it right now. Whatever story that is going to be developed out of this content. Here we are again. I'm going to walk through how I create this character, and then probably off camera I will create my pilgrim character. Just move this fellow off to the side. And just to remind you, I mean, this is my own personal obsession to play this character, but you certainly are not meant necessarily to be starting with a character, let alone a character from another game. The guidelines on page 202 of this book are where you will get the summary of what you are meant to do, and the first one is to create our character, which we will be doing here, I believe. Here we go. Okay, envision our character, done. Be awesome. Hopefully we will be. Alright, with the stats, I need to, well, there's a couple things I realize I haven't yet done. The asset cards that I will be using, there's some downloads on the website, and I didn't show this in the flip through, but there's the rules summary here, which I've printed out, and there is also this world generation summary thing. I can't remember what he calls it, that I will walk through, as well as the moves, the move summary pages, and here's the map we're going to get to, and of course the character sheet. I need to come up with a name. My character here, I've decided, is going to be called, it's going to be called Sir Charles. I'm going to call him Sir Charles in honor of both an old friend of mine and also my brother-in-law, both of whom are Charleses. So this is going to be Sir Charles, and he will, let's see, I'm going to go with, there's a provision to roll randomly to see which of these stats gets the +3. I'm not going to do that here for him, but you could do that. In the back of the book there's a table that shows you how to do that. Well, he is a knight, so I think we're going to be giving him a +3 on either iron or heart. We're going to give him a +3 on, we're going to give him the 3 on heart. And we're going to give him the 2 on iron. And we're going to give him a 2, let's see, maybe we'll give him a 2 on edge also. And that leaves us with the 1 and the 1 on the shadow and the widths. So we're going to take care of that, and we will then go to our, I need some markers here. I'll come in with that here and set my health track at 5. And my starting, let's see, the starting spirit is also going to be at, I think it's going to be at 5 as well. And my momentum, so I'll set up all these starting values here. Let's talk a little bit about assets. Assets are the background, skills, and traits of the character, and they really flesh out the direction of the character. And while there are not races or classes in this game, the combination or choice that you make among the 4 available assets, combat, companion, path, or ritual, do serve to give that type of flavor for it. So the most of them you have are paths. This is the amount. These are cards I made, not such a great P&P, but from the website. And the available choice to you, when the dot is filled in, this is what you initially get. If it has choices, you can upgrade as you move along and get experience. Some of them don't have the dots filled in, and that means you get to choose. Maybe all of these do, but if it doesn't have the dot filled in, you get to choose what the actual asset is going to be, but I guess most of them actually do. So what you need to do initially for your characters or character is to choose 3 assets, and there's no real requirements for them except that you can only choose 3. For this knight, he is a knight already, so obviously I'm going to be giving him 1 or probably 2 of his 3 assets will be a combat related asset. And I mentioned earlier I like to travel with companions for at least 1 character, so I'll likely give him some type of companion. And the options here, so here's one without the card filled in. So you can choose, if you choose a hound, for example, you can choose whether he's going to be sharp and get that benefit, ferocious, or loyal. And the options for, I guess all the companions give you the further option to choose. So I'm going to do this off camera just for length's sake and assign each of my characters a relevant asset. So the knight is going to be, he will be combat focused. My woods girl, she, as is suggested here, is going to have some ranged combat ability, but she's also going to have, I'm going to find some assets for her that allow her to commune with nature with some benefit, or something along those lines that will emphasize her place in the natural world, and that really is her element. And my pilgrim here, haven't really decided on his direction yet, but he is not going to be combat focused. He is going to be perhaps a somebody with abilities in knowledge or wisdom in some capacity. He's an old soul with a lot of knowledge and history of the world. For better or worse, I have made my choices. As I don't know this game and system so well, it's hard to evaluate all the options, but I went with things that seemed thematically appropriate and will create a story, hopefully, that helps them shine. So for my White Knight, I've chosen a hawk companion for him, and I have options here. I didn't really look at this, probably just take far seeing. He's going to be leading, he meaning our knight, is certainly going to be the person leading this party, and might as well have somebody that is going to help with undertaking the journey. Could be doing vigilant also, but I'll figure that part out. He is going to be a sword master, and this comes with the initial skill here that when we do a strike or clash and burn momentum to improve our result, we can inflict 2 harm. So this is thematically appropriate because it allows him to take more risk for potentially more benefit. And the final asset will be that he is a wayfinder, so that he is going to allow a benefit for undertaking a journey and also then gaining 2 momentum after he resets. Now, actually, in light of that, I realized maybe I'll take the Hawk's asset as being probably vigilant, so that he is going to help us prepare for an encounter as opposed to prepare for a journey. For the pilgrim, we're going to make him an herbalist, and this will allow him some benefit or a choice of benefits when he's going to attempt a healing action. And I'm giving him 2 rituals, and the reason that I'm doing this is there's going to be a backstory to this pilgrim that is going to be revealed during the course of the game. I don't know what it is yet, but because of that, I think there's going to be some history there with how he got these talents or why he has these ritual capacities. So I've given him this talisman ritual to make charms and create a sort of prevention ward for somebody, and also that of communion. So he is going to be able to surround a deceased intelligent creature and possibly call forth a spirit that will maybe help guide them or give some information in their journey. I thought that might provide an interesting narrative possibility here. And for the Woods Girl, I have chosen her combat talent, perhaps pretty obviously, as she's going to be an archer. And then I've given her 2 paths, and I've given her this path of Story Weaver, and I have done this because I think it might add something. I still haven't decided if she is starting the adventure with these other 2, or if one of their initial first vows is to go to try to find her, because she's off in the woods somewhere by herself, and she is there. I don't know why, but she is definitely some type of storyteller or story weaver. And she is also quite clearly, in my mind, for whatever reason, an outcast. And as such, she has the capacity to help save herself in terms of running low on supplies. And so I have chosen that as her 3rd asset. Our hero, Sir Torr, was born to Hogarth the Great, a warrior of great renown in the northern lands. Torr was raised in palaces by his mother, Lady Lucina, but one day she became ill and suddenly died. When Hogarth returned to the kingdom, he had a young and mysterious woman named Lysandra of the North with him. Together they had Ambrosia. From the beginning, Ambrosia was different. She could commune with nature and perform what appeared to be minor magic, nature magic. Eowan is a scholar and historian and keeper of the book and a childhood friend who had been raised with Hogarth. He is haunted by the ghost of Hogarth the Great and has dedicated his life to finding what has happened to Hogarth and why his ghost cannot be put to rest. Lysandra of the North was shunned by the community but continued to raise Ambrosia, but one day when Ambrosia was 16 years old, she vanished. Some say it was vengeance by the ghost of Hogarth, who did not want one of his children to have more than 16 years of life with a mother than the other. Shortly after her mother vanished, Ambrosia vanished too, and some say she went to find her.
Eowan remains to find the scribe to finish the story of Hogarth and put his soul to rest, and Sir Torr's mission is to avenge the death of his father.
It might be easier to understand the relationships of everybody by referring to this diagram. Hogarth the Great was a warrior of great renown, and he married Lady Lucinda of the Hills. She was from Tempest Hills. He settled in her lands, which was the remnants of a very wealthy farming community, and Sir Torr was raised amid the ruins of the palaces in the Tempest Hills. Hogarth was off fighting wars in the north for much of Sir Torr's life, and when he was 16, his mother, Lady Lucinda, died. After a certain time, Hogarth the Great came back from fighting the wars in the north with Lysandra of the North, who was a young, mysterious woman who shortly bore him a daughter named Ambrosia. Ambrosia is the woods girl and the half-sister of Sir Torr. There is an age difference between the two of them of about 20 years. Eowan is Eowan the Haunted, and he was a childhood friend of Hogarth the Great, and even when they were children, Hogarth was the anointed one and the one who received the most attention, but Eowan himself was very wise, he was a sage, and he became a great scholar and a keeper of the remnants of the history of the great people of this Irons world, and he carries with him to this day a sacred tome that is somewhat mysterious but yet important. When this story opens, a hawk has come to Sir Torr and Eowan, who are traveling together. They have vowed to each other, however possible, to seek vengeance for the death many, many years before of Hogarth the Great. This hawk, however, comes with word that Ambrosia is seen wandering in the flooded lands nearby the barrier islands, and that she is in dire need of her half-brother's help. And that is the inciting incident for this story. Take a quick look at the character sheets here. I had showed you already, well, I've changed Sir Charles to Sir Torr because it fit better, and I'll clean this all up. We went through what his stats are going to be. I've added in his bonds. The bonds that are important to him are Eowan and Ambrosia. I'm going to mark her off here. And his vow is, his main vow, this is an extreme vow, is to avenge the death of his father. I'm not making that epic because I believe that as this story unfolds, something bigger is going to come to light that is ultimately going to be the epic vow. So on some level, while it seems like that's the meta story, the death of his father is going to lead to something even bigger. And the inciting event or incident is the hawk that was named Bleak arrived with news that Ambrosia, I had changed her name here, is in danger. Now, I didn't mention this earlier, but Ambrosia was off because her mother, Lysandra of the North, vanished at some point. We don't know whether she was abducted, whether she died somehow. We don't really know what happened to her, but this is what Ambrosia was off doing, trying to get news of her mother, and she has run into trouble where she is, and that's the beginning of this story. In terms of what Sir Torr is carrying, and there's not really a place here for equipment or items on the sheet. I think there really should be. I'm going with the rules that suggest a lot of this can be abstracted, but I'm going to simply note right now that he has an old sword. It is the old sword of Hogarth the Great. It used to be a magical, powerful sword, but at this point it is just old, and this is what he is traveling with. And of course, he's a knight, he has his armor and things of that nature, but I'm not at this point noting that down. Eowan is the pilgrim scholar, sage, archivist, and I've given him the 3 on wits, 2 on shadow and heart, and 1 on edge and iron. His main bonds are to Hogarth, the ghost of Hogarth, and to Sir Torr. As you will recall, he is haunted. He's haunted by the death of his childhood friend, and somehow this book, this magical tome or sacred tome that he is carrying, is
implicated in that. And there's some suggestion, I think, that the life of Hogarth was not correctly concluded in the writing of this sacred tome, and that it is Ewa's duty to get this tome to the right place or the right person, I don't know, to complete that story and put Hogarth the Great to rest in his mind and in the spirit world, and he is carrying the sacred tome. And then finally we have Ambrosia. She is the woods girl. Her strongest attribute is edge, and she has a 2 on heart and wits and a 1 on iron and shadow. She has a very strong bond to the Veiled Mountains, where she was from, and also to her mother, Lysandra. So whether this is to ultimately a ghost, whether Ambrosia is going to turn into a haunted person like Ewa, we don't know. Will she be able to find her mother? We're not sure. But her main vow here, her extreme vow, is to find the community that knew her mother, but this is interrupted because she's running into some type of danger where she is, and as I said, where the story opens, we're going to see Sir Torr and Ewa come to her aid. Finally, I do want to mention that I did complete the Truths workbook sheets here, and I won't go through everything because it's taking too much time, but just to give you the sketch, this world of Ironsworn has bleak weather. There was some type of prior sickness that eradicated many of its inhabitants. It is a land of ancient ruins and wandering militia that protects the people against some sort of vague threat, and this was involved in whatever it was, the wars that Hogarth the Great was fighting are involved in that threat. Magic here is rare and dangerous, but it does exist, and we know in some way that Ewa is magical or has some connection to magic, and we also have the suggestion that Ambrosia herself, through her connection to nature and living in the wilds for so long, may as well. There are many gods, and they make themselves manifest through various miracles that happen, and there are roaming beasts. So the countryside is a place where there can be encounters with certain type of beasts. They're not everywhere, but that's definitely a possibility. At long last, we're going to start to roll some dice. The first thing I want to do is figure out where this woods girl is, because we know that she is separated from the White Knight and the Pilgrim, and the inciting incident is going to be that they're going to go in search of her. But I need to know, first of all, where she is. Ultimately, she's trying to make her way up here. Maybe everybody is trying to make their way up here, but let's roll. There are, potentially following the map that's given in the book, there are 9 areas in the Ironlands, and if I roll a 10, I'll just do a re-roll. Well, there we go. She is in region 4, which is going to be the flooded lands, and that is going to be right down here. So the woods girl is going to be here, and let's see where the White Knight and the Pilgrim are going to begin this. Wow, going to begin this story. They are going to be in 1, which is the Barrier Islands, and that's going to be down here. So we will be positioning them here. She's going to be here and just kind of hanging out there. I haven't decided whether I'm going to be flipping back and forth or what in terms of different scenes. I don't know, but they will be beginning in the Barrier Islands. Now, the next thing that I want to do is bring in some external material. I said I was going to try to keep to just the material that's in the basic rule book here, but actually that's not entirely true. The Barrier Islands, which run along the coast here, are described in the rules as places with crashing waves and treacherous currents, jagged rocks, snow-dappled cliffs, low clouds, curling mists, ferocious winds. They are the Ragged Coast, and here is a picture of them from the rule set. However, within this place, I want us to be somewhere. And to get to where we are, I'm going to turn to an external source, which is a pattern language. This is a book by Christopher Alexander, and it is not anything to do with RPG material, but it's a book you may have seen me use in other videos that I do. It has 253 entries, and of those entries, most of them are useful to create a sense of space and can be evocative for that. So I'm going to turn to this random generator to get an entry number that I can work with for this story. 38. 38 in a pattern language is going to bring us to an entry called row houses. And let's just take a look and see what we have here, and whether and how we can make use of this material. In certain parts of a community, the detached homes and gardens of the house cluster will not work because they are not dense enough. To help create these patterns, we need to build row houses instead. Typically, they're dark inside and stamped from an identical mold on the outside. So this is going to be what I'm going to use for my inspiration for the beginning part of this story. I see the White Knight and the Pilgrim wandering in these rocky cliffs and finding themselves in a small village where the row houses have been built inside or against the cliffs and for protection against the biting winds and the very extreme temperatures of this land. They have clustered together, even though the population is very, very sparse. They have clustered together in these row houses, and the White Knight and the Pilgrim are walking into this village and finding themselves amid this sheltering cluster in the village. We need to get a settlement name here, so we'll just turn to what we've got, and we have 63, which is going to be stone, and 81, Stonebrook. Stonebrook is the name of the village into which they have wandered. As Sir Torr and Eowan make their way along the coastal path, they see the cliffs rising up behind this row house, this cluster of row houses, which is the village of Stonebrook, and they know that there is a tavern here that they can go to and hopefully find someone to talk to. The first question, though, that we need to ask before we get to that point is whether or not this town is still around, is still populated, or whether the people have escaped due to some of the threats that have been reported in the country of late. And I'm going to say that it's almost certain that they are still going to find someone here to speak with, but let's just make sure. And indeed, yes, there's going to be someone here to speak to. I'm going to say, though, that it's unlikely that whoever they find will be somebody with a connection or a bond to them, because they are both from the upper portions of this country, and we're down here in the low area, and indeed, no, whoever they encounter is not going to have any special meaning to them. So I think they're going to take the obvious chance and make their way into the tavern and try to gain some information about the area and what's going on, and whether or not there have been any sightings or rumors of a woods girl in the region next door. We have wandered into this tavern, and the nature of the world is such that when somebody is wandering around as a clearly a knight in some type of armor, it might not be shining per this imagery, with this old sword and this old guy with no weapons who's clearly some sort of wanderer, the people are suspicious, and it is unknown whether this knight is going to be somebody, a mercenary who is just available to anyone or on the side of the danger or whatever. So they're going to be not clear on how successful they can be in getting some information that will help them. So the first move they're going to do is try to assess the situation, and they're going to try to use some charm. They're going to come in and be friendly and charming, and the knight himself will be trying to secure some type of advantage. So we're going to do a roll here using our heart value, and this will be the first roll of the game, and we'll show, well, at least with these type of dice, and we'll show how that works. So our action number here is 4, and the heart value of Sir Torr is 3. That gives us a 7, and we rolled here a 4 and a 10. So while we did get a pretty high value, we also rolled a 10. So what we're getting from that is a partial success, I guess is what you would call it. I don't know if that's the term that he uses. A weak hit. So a weak success because our action score is greater than 1 but not the other. And what that is going to translate to here for trying to secure an advantage is +1 momentum we get, but some sort of short-lived advantage. Well, I'm going to interpret this as meaning that we go up to the bartender. He is suspicious, but he is open, I guess, to giving us some type of limited information. And what we have heard from this hawk is that there has been tell of Ambrosia, his half-sister, wandering around a nearby region, and she is in some type of trouble. And I think at this point what we need to know is what is the fastest way to cross over from where we are in the Barrier Islands over to the flooded lands. That's one thing that we need to know. I have indicated that this little town or hamlet that we have found ourselves in of Stonebrook is down here, nestled in the cliffs, and the region that we're trying to go to is nearby, but it is vast also. So we have absolutely no idea where she is, and we are instructed that traveling within Ironlands is difficult. That if we're going a moderate distance, it's troublesome. If it's a long distance within a single region or across some type of rough terrain, it's going to be dangerous. And then minimally traveling from one region to another is going to be formidable. And so that's at a minimum what we're going to do. So we definitely want to see if we can gain some advantage, some knowledge of how we can get the best way to start to begin our travels northeast, I guess it is. And that's what we're going to be asking of this tavern owner. Now, we want to gather information. That's the move we want to make. And here is where I haven't really been able to figure this out in the rules or not. Perhaps somebody can comment if they know. As co-op, when to gather information, we're going to be rolling on our wits, and we don't have any bonds within this community, as we talked about, and we already know that whatever we're going to get is going to be limited. But the question is, need I roll on my wits with my white knight, whose wits are 1, because I began this little segment here by using his heart to try to secure the advantage? Or can I say, well, the pilgrim's going to be the one to take over now because his wits are 3? That's a pretty big difference in this game. So, I'm ambiguous on the rules here as to, or whether it's even addressed, but since I'm playing co-op, I'm going to say, why not, that I'm going to use the character who has the best advantage in the same situation, and I'm going to be taking the pilgrim forward to talk to this tavern keep, and we've already purchased some mead that we're drinking, and the winds are whipping around outside, and we're trying to be as charming and as companionable as we can be. We're not getting too far, but nevertheless, the pilgrim is going to make an appeal and ask the tavern keep behind the bar what the easiest way is. There a path that can be taken that will give us, our party, the best advantage toward where we want to go? And so we're going to try to gather information that way by rolling on our wits. And here is what we did. This is actually pretty good. We have rolled a 5 and our wits are 3, so that's going to be an 8. And there we go. Whoops, that was a 7 and a 4. So this is going to end up being a strong hit, and we are going to discover something helpful and specific. So what we need to do next is to think about what that means. We're going to get 2 momentum for this, and momentum I have also decided is going to be as a party. I know My assessment of this strong success that we had when we were trying to gather information is that the pilgrim has been able to pry information, a very specific piece of information out of the barkeep as to where we should go next, what path we should travel on. It's almost certain that he's going to tell us something like that. So let's just roll on that and see if indeed it is. And yes, indeed it is. We didn't have such a huge roll, but it's certain. We're going to learn from the barkeep where we should go next. And here I'm going to go to the oracle table. He's going to give us a settlement name. He's going to send us along this coastline here to the next town over. He's going to send us to this a settlement here. And what settlement is it going to be? It is going to be 85, which is going to be something called Greycliff. Okay, so Greycliff is going to be where we're headed, and Greycliff will be along the cliffs. We think we know this. It sounds familiar to us, and this means I want some more information. What I want is I want some information about this town, something about the history of it, where are we headed? We want some information before we're going, and the pilgrim has decided he's going to kind of press for that. So how will he do that? Well, what he can do is try to compel someone to give some more information, and he is going to do this. He's going to still use, I think, his charm, his heart to do that. He's the one that's set out on this, so he is going to be, I would say, we need to continue with his value here. He's got a 2 heart, so we're going to roll on that to see if we can get any more information. What we're really trying to find out is something about this settlement, and we've got a 5, and no, indeed, we are just not successful at all. And in fact, we got to pay the price here. We've annoyed or angered this barkeep, and that will give me an opportunity to show you what happens when you have to pay the price. And what happens when we pay the price? Well, we'll refer to the book here and see that there are choices. We could either make the most negative outcome, the obvious one, happen. We can envision 2 negative outcomes and roll one as likely and ask the oracle. Or we could roll on this table. And I think for the purposes of this video, it's the first time I've done this, I'm going to roll on the table and just see, for myself for the challenge, and also just to demonstrate how one can roll on a D100 table and create some narrative outcomes. So we need to figure out what the impact of this is going to be. And we roll an 11. This means you are separated from something or someone. Well, suddenly there is a very loud sound outside of this tavern, and the White Knight rushes out through the wooden doors, and there's wind that is slapping his body and whirling mists, and he rushes down toward the sound of the screeching, which sounds like his hawk screeching, and he runs toward away from the inn down toward the beachhead, where there are thunderclouds rolling in. There is the ocean in the distance. It's relatively calm, but there is a mist that is rising up, and in the mist, out of the mist, he sees his hawk, who is fighting for her life, who's struggling in the jaws of a ferocious wolf that has come down from the cliffs somewhere and has grabbed the hawk, and there's blood dripping down from the jaws of this wolf, and the hawk is definitely in trouble and struggling. And Sir Torr now knows that he has no choice but to abandon the attempts that he's been making at trying to befriend this people, and he is going to have to enter the fray. So the first thing that he's going to do in terms of combat is to determine the rank of this foe, and it is a foe of rank
dangerous, which means that he will get 2 progress per harm inflicted, and it will inflict 2 harm. This wolf has, as you would expect, keen senses. It is somebody who is going to mark its territory. It runs with a pack, although this is a lone wolf right now, and it stalks and it drags things to the ground, and apparently that is what it has done with the hawk, who has at this point already been injured. And so the first thing we need to do is figure out how to respond to this. And in this particular instance, because we're entering into combat and we clearly have been ambushed, in order to determine the situation with the initiative, what we need to do is to roll with our wits. And Sir Torr's wits are at a 1, so we will be going to our action die and the 2 challenge dice and rolling with our wits. Oh, we got a nice roll of a 5, and 1 is going to be a 6. But unfortunately, we rolled high. So we have at this point this is a miss. We are beginning combat at a disadvantage, and we have lost initiative, and once again we have to pay the price for this. And in this case, I think the most negative outcome is that the wolf is going to clamp his teeth down even stronger on the hawk, who continues to struggle, and the hawk becomes lifeless in his jaws, and the wolf drops our hawk, who is just a pile on the beach now, and charges toward us. And that is where we find ourselves now, responding at a disadvantage. We're going to clash with this wolf, and we will fight them in close quarters with our sword that we have drawn, and we're going to roll plus our iron, which is 2, to see what may occur. Once again, we roll a 5, although in this instance we get slightly better result because our iron is a value of 2, so we're at a 7, and the challenge dice are here at a 1 and a 6, so that is going to be a strong hit. We're going to bolster our position, we're going to get 1 momentum, and we're going to inflict plus 1 harm, which is fantastic. So we need to make a note of that because it will also contribute to our progress track in this initial encounter with the wolf. So I've thrust my sword successfully into the wolf, and I've inflicted some wound on his torso. He's bleeding. He's still coming at me, but I have the initiative, and I'm going to take this opportunity to try to secure my advantage. So what I'm going to do here is make that roll, and I'm going to be rolling as an aggressive action. So I'll be using my iron value again, which is a 2. I'm still rolling pretty decently, but not as good as before. So I've got a value of 6 as against 1 and a 10. This is going to be a weak hit, unfortunately. So this advantage was short-lived. I do get plus 1 momentum, which is pretty good because my momentum now is at 4, but that's pretty much all that happens. And I think that means I'm going to be losing the initiative at this point. I wasn't quite successful. The wolf is coming back at me. So I'm going to, as he leaps toward me, I'm going to, in a sense, jump out of the way. Well, to the extent that I can jump, I'm facing this danger, and I'm going to defend myself forcefully, once again rolling with my iron value of 2. That's a 5 I rolled, and this is a weak hit. I succeed, but there is a cost at that, and my cost here for facing danger is I'm either going to suffer a momentum loss, I'm going to endure some harm, or endure some stress, and I think in this case it's really more a loss of momentum, so I'm going to take that as a momentum loss of 1, and I have still lost the initiative, so we're going to clash again here. And this I glance off to the side, and I see the hawk now is just lifeless on the beach, so whatever aid that I was going to continue to get from that hawk is now gone. I have lost my companion in this fight, and I am really enraged at this, and I am going to be clashing again with this
this wolf here who I did inflict some wounds on, but is still coming at me. And at this point, I am perhaps, because I am just motivated by irrational emotion, not rolling very well. So here, this is going to be a total miss. I'm outmatched. I'm going to pay the price again. I've lost the initiative, and let's go back to this table and see what option here that is going to be the negative outcome. So once again, we're going to do our D100 roll here and see what we get. We rolled an 87. It wastes resources. Well, indeed. Indeed, we're wasting time. We've lost our ally, and at this point, I think my biggest resource is my emotional state. And so I take this to mean that I'm going to be needing to do this endure stress roll, because I am really, I am just taken aback that this hawk is gone, and we need to see whether I can rally behind this or whether I am just going to not be able to shake it off and have some further negative. So I can choose here to roll heart or spirit, and my heart is 3. I am a knight after all. So this is what we're going to do. We're going to roll to see how well we have endured this stress, or how bad is the potential setback of this situation. Well, we have just, with our innate motivation, heart, resolve, add-on, with this roll of 1, come to 4, as against 2 3s on the challenge dice. So this really says something about our personality, and it's a strong hit. We're going to be shaking it off, and we can, if our spirit is greater than 0, we can suffer a minus momentum in exchange for 1 spirit, if we want to do that, or we can embrace the darkness and take a +1 momentum, and I think that's what we're going to do. We are accepting of the situation. We're going to gain back that momentum that we lost, and we will now continue on with this wolf, who is looking a little tired and continuing to bleed from the torso wound, and we're just going to go at him again. But wait, not so fast. We can see here there's a match on these challenge die, and when this happens, there is a twist. There is a new complication or something. Because this double 3s came up, we have to look for a complication, and we're instructed here to the outcome of this should be a twist in the narrative that is going to be a new opportunity to us, because the match happened on a strong hit. The knight looks beyond the lifeless body of the hawk back up to the cliffs at the shadowy figure, the mist-enshrouded figure who has been there and perhaps sending signals down to the wolf. The wolf continues to labor in breath, and the knight is seeing that this figure starts to move down the cliff face, climb down the cliff face, and he knows he must take swift action. The wolf doesn't seem like too much of a threat at the moment, but the Sir Torr can't take any chances at this point. What needs to happen is we need to attack him with another strike. That's a great strong hit. We rolled a total of 7 as against 4 and 2. It's another strong hit. We're going to get +1 harm, and so that is going to be for a total of another 6 progress. So with 12 progress, we are going to make a progress move to end the fight. So what we're doing here is we are going to roll the challenge dice and compare it to our progress. We ignore momentum on this roll. Actually, in point of fact, I don't even need to make this roll. Here we are with this encounter, and we can see that we had 2 strong hits, and indeed, each one of those allowed us to mark 6 progress, bringing us above the progress track of 10, which I didn't realize because I wasn't actively doing this until I took a moment. So, in fact, there's no need for a progress roll, because obviously we can't roll with 2 d10s looking at single values, a 12 or more. So, the wolf is gone. The wolf is gone. What's happening now is Eowan has come out of the inn and rushed over to the bleeding hawk, who is, lying in a pool of blood. The dead hawk is lying in the pool of blood in the sand. And we remember that he has this communion asset. And let's take a closer look at that. He can and is going to surround the remains of a recently deceased intelligent creature with lit candles and summon its spirit. He's going to roll plus heart. He doesn't share a bond, and we're going to see whether he can summon a spirit of this hawk to get any more information from it. His heart is 2. So let's do this roll, and it would be nice if I could roll on so you could see it. Unfortunately, we get nothing. He has been unable to, with a value of 4, overcome the challenge of getting any information from the hawk. And just as the White Knight and Eowan are looking at each other in despair, this figure comes further down from the cliff, and our party turns to look at it and assess the threat that this fellow may offer. And let's see, who is it that is coming down. What we're going to do here is turn to the book here and some of the oracle tables in the back. We are approached by somebody who is wearing a tattered cloak, and he introduces himself as, Lona. Well, why not? That could be a man's name. He introduces himself as Lona, and he tells us that he is, he's a fisherman, and he comes from a neighboring region, a coastal region. He's a fisherman, and he tells us that he was out wandering the coastline and washed up onto the rocky sand was this item that he is going to give us. Now, what item is it? Well, I want this to be something of a possibly minor magical nature, and as you know, I said I was going to try not to bring in any other materials as much as possible, but I am going to go to this book here and turn to the D100 table of minor wondrous items, because I want us to, this is going to be our twist, our advantage. I want it to be something potentially magical, so I'm going to roll on this table and we'll see what we get. We got a 46, and what is a 46 on this table? 46 on this table is Eyes of the Eagle. Fascinating. It's amazing how, you can sort of piece these things together. Eyes of the Eagle. Let's see what this is. This is going to definitely be some kind of connection to our now deceased hawk. Eyes of the Eagle. Let's see if you can, is this legible? It's pretty small font here. All right, let me come in closer and let's just read this and see how we can apply it here. Eyes of the Eagle. These items are made of special crystal and fit over the eyes of the wearer. These lenses grant a competence. Well, clearly this minor wondrous item is something related to our deceased ally, who made a brief appearance and initiated the action here, Bleak, the now gone hawk, but the spirit of that hawk lives on in this little item that is given to us. Eowan steps forward and takes it before Sir Torr even has a chance, and we know that Eowan is feeling very remorseful that he was unable to commune with the spirit of the hawk, but this is going to be his second chance somehow. These eyes are going to allow us at some point in the future to gain perhaps a vision of the woods girl or aid us in our journey, and now it is time for us to leave this this area and continue along the coastline to the next place, our way stop that we know we must get to. And we say our goodbyes to the fisherman who goes back along the coastline to his own little village and has given us his part in the story of our quest. I'm now going to mark down that, not sure, but Eowan is now carrying, in addition to this sacred tome, this Eyes of the Eagle. And this is where we have landed at this point. We will be turning and walking along the coast to make the next part of our journey here to the town whose name I can't remember right now. And I think this is where we're going to leave things. We never really had an appearance of the Woods Girl. I was hoping that the attempt at communion would have yielded some vision into what she was doing. We still know she's in danger there over in the flooded lands, but it is now our mission to move along and try to get a few steps closer to finding her. Not only is this a rules light RPG, but it is one where the rules themselves, as you could see in the demo here, are extremely narrative based. So any outcome is going to be based on your narrative interpretation of it. And that really it lends itself obviously to storytelling, but it also lends itself to very intuitive play. And it was taking me more of the external thought process to put this together because I was filming it, but pretty soon into working with this, I think if I was just playing it off camera, it would be very easy to become completely involved. You don't need to reference a lot beyond if you have the moves printed out. It's extremely intuitive as to what you can be doing and the ways in which the story can develop. The other part that works very well is the relationship, and you saw this a little bit at the end of that scene there where I referenced back the worksheets that I had done earlier on in terms of excuse me creating the world here, and the decision that I had made at some point about the relationship of this world to magic and mysticism. I think magic is rare and dangerous, but the few who wield the power are truly gifted. That gave me enough of a guideline to know that I wanted the positive twist to be the gaining some type of magic item, and not a major one, not something that's going to completely change the setting and change the relationships of the characters to the environment, but something. And the going back and forth between that and the very specific scene that I was working with there was quite natural. So it lends itself to that. And it also, for me at least, lent itself to this notion of creating something. I guess it came into my mind pretty early on when I knew that I was going to be having these two characters together in search of, at least initially, in search of the Woods Girl, because when I continue playing this, and I will at some point, although probably not for video, to me it feels very natural at this point to just switch scenes in a very kind of film sort of way, move to the Woods Girl and see what is going on with her. It would give me the opportunity to just play one character in an environment as opposed to two, and it feels like that makes sense, and to play out some actions on her part to see what's going on. Does she know that she is being sought by these characters? I don't know. What type of danger is she in? How close is she to fulfilling her own vows and quests? And just moving back and forth. And there's really something about the rule set, at least the way I was playing it here, that allowed for that. The other thing is you can see these Post-its I've put here. I have one marked the beginning of combat. This is the main oracle and the pay the price table. those 3 reference points really are enough to carry you through the book, so you're not forced to be paging through a lot of different things. And the oracle tables, again, come into play when I felt I needed one. There was something to fit that theme, so that part of it also is just remarkably well done in terms of the support that the book itself offers. The bookkeeping, which I didn't really show, is pretty minor. My only, I think as I mentioned this, but I never quite settled on the best way to keep track of the movement of, we didn't really get into supply or anything, but the movement of health and momentum. I didn't quite figure out how best to do that. I was just kind of keeping notes on the side, and maybe that ultimately would be the best way to have that occur. So that's a look inside the gameplay of Ironsworn. I think this is fantastic, not only for a solo player, but if you haven't played RPGs before, or if you've done maybe choose your own adventure kind of books and found them a little lacking in terms of flexibility and options and real development and investment of the story, this is definitely something worth looking into. Thanks for watching.